Why, hello, and welcome to our special event. We are the Heartland Chapter of the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, and we have a very special event for you today on how to win an Emmy. I am in charge of the programs department here. I'm on the board of directors. I'm Juliana Brosti, Traveling Jules. I'm a travel video journalist, and with me today we have the one and only Lucas Ross.
Oh boy, Jules, thanks for having me. I love the Emmys and I'm honored to get to be part of it. I don't do conventional, maybe broadcast news, but I've been working in news for, oh man, almost 13, 14 years doing more entertainment type stuff and light news. And a few years into it, I had somebody reach out to me, Bill Perry, who's another Oklahoma Emmy winner. And he said, you should consider being involved with the Heartland Emmys. And I didn't even know that was a thing I could do. And so that's kind of what today is all about, is for people that might be like me. And I tell people this, like, if I can win an Emmy, maybe you can too. You probably can. And not because it's easy by any means, but there's a lot more to it than you might be eligible for a lot of different categories. And that's kind of what today is going to be about.
Right. So today we brought a very special guest who's actually the executive director of the chapter. She does all the behind the scenes. This is Audrey Elling. Hello, Audrey.
Hi, Lucas. Hi, Jules. I'm not a special guest. I'm the worker bee here in the office.
She is the Emmy lady in the office. You might have seen her on Mondays. We do a special live stream to answer questions, do a Q&A. But yeah, every time you call the office, it's Audrey. So who better to share all the nuts and bolts, the tips and tricks, the ABCs of how to enter the Heartland Emmy competition, but Audrey.
Well, I'm super happy to be here. So thank you very much for doing this. Jules and Lucas are the co-chairs of our program committee, and this is something that they're putting together because a lot of people have been asking, so how exactly do I do this, and am I eligible? So we thought we would put this together. It's designed to be an overview on how to enter, whether you're a regular entrant and need a refresher because, 12 months goes by, or whether you're a first-time entrant looking for the basics. We're going to cover stuff today that can stay on our website, and you can refer to it anytime you need. We'll be talking eligibility, categories, the Emmy process, and then we'll take your Q&A afterwards. So
let's jump in. That will be awesome. And you know, Lucas is going to be here managing the chat in case you have any questions. You can pop them in the chat right now on YouTube or Facebook.
Yeah, I'll be looking for those questions, and we'll have those for you, Audrey. I know there's a lot of people that have some great questions that can really help in guiding that they could be the next Emmy winner this year.
You know, my favorite part of this entire season is taking these questions. So we'll get moving and we'll get to your questions. Okay, cool. Rock and roll.
Okay, we'll see you in a minute.
Okay, our call for entries is now open. Deadline of, and this is our big 2022 poster, just so that there's no confusion. We are now open and we are accepting entries into the Heartland Chapter's 2022 Emmy Awards competition. So go for it. Our purpose is to recognize the best work from the previous year, that is 2021, and to encourage excellence in video production. So we are all about excellence, and that's why we're looking for your video. Such great work is being done all around our region. We want to award that. You know us, the Emmys, from televised award shows. In fact, there are 3 distinct and related Emmy organizations. There's LA, which is the Television Academy. There is New York, the NATAS, National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. And there is IITIS, which is the International Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. And then there are the chapters. The chapters are part of NATAS, that is the New York region, National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, not the Television Academy. The Television Academy does Primetime Emmy Awards. The National NATAS organization does News and Doc Awards. You may be familiar with those, and Daytime. The International Emmys has their own award show. Anyway, the chapters are part of NATAS, the New York the New York National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. Now, most of the chapters are allocated by DMA, which is Designated Market Area. And there is a chapter for everybody in the country, no matter where you live and work. Chapters award excellence for local work, while the national academies, the Television Academy and NATAS, award Emmy Awards for excellence in national productions. Our Heartland chapter area of eligibility includes these markets based on DMA, Designated Market Area, which is kind of an old school ratings method, roughly referring to a city and its surrounding area. So we cover 5 states: Colorado, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Wyoming, and Kansas. And we cover most of the DMAs in those states. We don't cover Kansas City, which is on the far eastern side of Kansas. But everything else in those 5 states, that's all about us. So work produced for a general audience in one of these states, Colorado, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Wyoming, or Kansas, is eligible to be entered. Eligibility, there are like maybe 4 main keys to eligibility. First of all, the distribution method, and this is critical, is anything from broadcast to digital. So the Emmy Awards basically don't care how you get your program distributed. Cable, satellite, antenna, digital, yes, we take it. It's all good. And this is brand new. We get so many people calling to say, I didn't know that. I have something that showed on YouTube, or it showed on my client's website. Is that eligible? And it may be. It's not ineligible just because it was aired on digital. So, but the second qualifier is your video must have been distributed to a general public audience. So if you're doing something for an enclosed gala, a client production of some kind, and only members see it at your gala or whatever, that would not be eligible. It has to go to a general public audience. Your video also must have been produced and intended for a local or regional audience, and that is key. If it was produced and intended for a potential national audience, you don't enter it locally, you enter it nationally. So don't be confused on that one. And then the final eligibility requirement is the video must have had its first air date during the last calendar year. So I don't know whether you say air date when you're talking about a digital production or a cablecast production, but it has to have seen the light of day during the last calendar year. Now, there are those, so those are the 4 main things. It's got to be distributed to a general public audience. We don't care about the distribution method. Produced and intended for a local or regional audience, and the video must have had its first mass air date during the last calendar year. There are restrictions on page 6 of the call for entries. So what is this call for entries? This is our entry rule book, and it's a CFE for short, call for entries. It's on our website. And you can download it, you can page through it online, whatever you need to do. Page 6 has some restrictions. So, and these are things like, it can't be a sizzle reel, it can't be pornographic or offensive, and so there are some things that it can't do. But basically, that's what we're about. Now, the entry process is just wicked simple. First of all, you create an account, or you have an account. It could be a member account or a guest account. Now, members of NATAS, of the Heartland chapter, will receive huge discounts on entry fees. So we're always going to say, become a member first, but you don't have to enter. You can be a guest, but you need an account because you're going to use your account to access the entry system itself. It's all online. You get in through your account. You will see, you can go into your account and there's a whole section of resources. You can read the call for entries there. It has all the rules and regulations. It has a list of all the categories, and it has everything that you need to know. So read the call for entries, and then you'll probably have questions, maybe have questions. You can give me a call, you can email me, and we'll get to that at the end of the program on how to do that. But yeah, get a hold of me if you have any questions, but read the call for entries. Okay, so first you create an account, then you read the call for entries, then you fill out and submit the online entry form. So this is filling out all the information about the one entry, and you'll fill out a form every time you want to submit an entry. So you can submit something, and maybe you've got this program that goes in one category, you've got another program that goes in another category. Each one requires its own entry form. So you fill out the entry form for this one, submit it, fill out an entry form for that one, submit it, then you pay for your entries, then you upload your video. The entry has to be submitted before you can upload the video. And I get this question every year because, why? Because the video needs to know where it's going to go. So it needs an entry ID number to attach to it so that it gets matched up to the right place, because the video is going into our system, and it will be matched up with your entry form, because those two things are what the judges are going to see. Then you will be emailed a copy of your entry form. You will use that entry form not only to upload your video, but also to double check for typos and anything that doesn't look quite right. So please take the time to do that double check. It's really important. Okay, so moving on to categories. We have almost 130 professional categories this year. That's almost double from last year. So wow, we're really going outside the box here. And we're going to have categories in different areas: news, sports, programs, spot announcement, crafts, and then a section called special achievement. And those are those make up our 127 categories, or whatever they are. We have a ton of new categories, and some of the ones that are getting a lot of talk this time around are categories called diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have those in both news and in programs, because news and programs don't ever mix. You're either part of a news organization or you're entering a program that has nothing to do with news. So diversity, equity, inclusion. We've got something called long form promotion, which is pretty cool. Interactive media, which includes a category called micro short, which is for like TikTok and Instagram videos. Very cool. And a category called entertainment. You can find a list of all the new stuff on our website. And our website, it's got a section called What's New This Year. So it's going to have the new rules and the new categories. Everything is listed. So you can, if you're a returning entrant, you can find out what has changed from last year. There's a lot of great stuff going on out there. So again, take a look, determine which is the right category for your program or video or news or whatever. But keep in mind, your video has to have been produced and intended for a regional audience in order to be entered here. So yeah, TikTok video, if it's a regionally designed, and those might not be very many of them, but if that's what you do, it's eligible here with us. So, okay, who wins the Emmy Award? Good question. First of all, and this is the important one, only the names that are listed on the entry form. So you might have the producer submit the form and put his or her name on it, but hopefully that producer is going to have checked with the entire crew, the photographers, the editors, the writers, and find out, do you want your name on the entry form? Even if they don't work with you anymore, they may have moved out of the state or out of the station, but if they contributed to the production of that video, check with them. And even if you can't pay to have their name put on the entry form, maybe they want to do that. But the problem is that if their name is not on that Emmy form, they're never, ever, ever going to get a statue. No way. And the statue is the thing. That's what people are looking for. So the name goes on the entry form. Every name on the entry form has a fee associated to it. Maybe they get the discounted member rate. Maybe they have a non-member entry fee. Maybe they've got a discount for judging. All of those things may apply, but we need a name on that entry form. We allow up to 12 names on the entry form. None of those names can be an organization or a group. It has to be an individual human name. And we take up to 12 of them, and they're the names of the people on the crew. So that is who is going to win the entry. You can add names after the entry deadline of January 28th. There's going to be a separate fee associated with that, but you can do that. If you wait until the nominations are announced before you think about adding names, you probably won't be able to add any names at all. It's just not done. There are certain circumstances where it happens. It costs $500. You don't want to go there. Get the names added before the nominations are announced. So that's the big deal. That's who's going to win the Emmy. So the best of the best, and only those names who are on entry form. I always say to people, don't make me cry in July. Our award shows are in July. The week after the show, I get calls from people whose name were not put on the entry forms. They weren't even contacted. And they call and they say, hey, I just saw on social media that the thing that I worked on won an Emmy Award last weekend. How do I get my statue? And I go and look and I say, your name is not on the entry form. Didn't the producer call you? Didn't anybody call you to say they were submitting this? And they're crying and I'm crying. And it's just a horrible, tragic situation. So please don't put me through that. Don't put your crew members on that because, you know, what, you want them to work with you again, maybe. Anyway, that's the thing. Names on the form. Now, who's going to be judging your stuff? This is a great question. All of our entries are judged by peer professionals in other chapters. So photographers, professional photographers are going to be judging the photography category. Documentary producers judge the documentaries. Documentary producers do not ever judge news and vice versa. And each entry is seen by at least 7 of these peer professional judges who are going to score your entry on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest. So after the deadline, your entries are reviewed, and then they're judged during March and April by these 7 judges, and they're judged all over the country. We have agreements with, I think, 8 other chapters to judge entries. So during the year, we're going to be getting requests from these 8 other chapters around the country to help them judge. And then we want them to help judge our entries. So all of our entrants are encouraged to help judge entries from other chapters, and only in those categories in which you have professional experience. So if you're entering and you're a professional photographer and you want to help us judge stuff from New York or the Suncoast chapter in the photography categories, oh yeah, bring it on. We would love to have your help. Because judges are eligible for discounted entry fees in next year's competition. And as always, if you judge 3 or more times for us, that is separate judging occurrences 3 times or more in a calendar year, you'll get a discount on your membership dues for next year. So it's a win-win. We have people that say that judging is the best seminar they ever went to. You get to see the good, the bad, and the ugly in Emmy entries from around the country. What are other chapters thinking are the hot news stories, and how do they put them together? What are other chapters doing in documentaries that is new and interesting? It's a great way to find out, and you put your own skills to use and expand a little bit. Okay, so important dates. What goes on during the year, the Emmy process here? Our entry deadline is January 28th. Then we use the following month of February to certify the entries, and we disqualify any entries that have rule violations so that only those of you who play by the rules are actually moving through competition. In March, the entries are sent out to other chapters to be judged. All judging is online, which is why we ask you to match the video to the entry form, to the entry ID number. So agreements again with 8 other chapters to trade entries. So your work is going to be seen by judges all over the country. Typically, one category, like say lifestyle program, is going to be seen by 7 or 8 other judges, and that'll usually be 2 from each of 4 chapters. That's kind of how it operates. So it's not like you're just being judged by one chapter. When the judging is complete, the ballots are tabulated, and those entries with the highest scores are announced as nominees at the end of May. And then this happens late in May. We don't have the date yet, so but all entrants will get an email or some notice that says, "Hey, here's when our nominees are going to be announced." Right after when the nominees are announced, tickets go on sale for the awards galas, and the awards galas are where the winners are announced. Our chapter has a gala in Denver and in Oklahoma City that happen at the exact same time. And winners are announced at those facilities at the exact same time. It is Saturday, July 16th. So that's when the winners are announced. And I hope you can make it. It's always a fun time. It's a black tie, sit down dinner kind of event. And it is a wonderful, wonderful time. You get to network. We don't televise it. We live stream it, but we don't televise it. So relax, have a good time with your peers, and celebrate some really, really exceptional work that we do here. Okay, so membership. If you have never worked with a chapter or with the Emmy organization, we membership in our chapter is renewed annually, and it goes for a calendar year. NATAS members receive huge discounts on entry fees, and your membership in another chapter is honored here. So you don't need to be a member in more than one chapter. As I mentioned before, members who judge 3 or more times earn a $10 discount on membership renewal fees next year. And our membership fees are $65 for 1 year or $110 for 2 years. So if you're going to be a member and you're also going to enter, we suggest that you become a member before you process your entry form. It's just a little bit easier for everybody that way. Okay, so now is the time in the program when I can answer your questions. So send them in, and Jules and Lucas will relay them. And when we're done, we'll move on. Just as an FYI, I am live on Facebook every Monday in January at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. You can also reach me by email, which is office@emmyawards.tv, or by phone in the Mountain Time Zone. I'm here in Denver, 303-722-0916. But I am here to help, and anything I can do, love to have you. So please send in your questions. Let me know what's going on, and I'll answer them.
Hey, Audrey, we've got a couple questions here. One is, how do I know if my work is regional or national? How can I tell the difference and if I'm eligible to enter in the Emmys?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's up to the producer, and the producer is going to be able to say what audience you intended this production for. Did you intend it to go national? For instance, it might have shown on a local PBS station, and maybe you've got a local PBS station as your sponsor, but you're really intending for this thing to get picked up by APB. That is a national production, so you wouldn't be able to enter that locally. A local production is something that is intended and produced for a local audience. So when you are looking at the video, it's going to be very, very clear that the audience was in Omaha, Nebraska, or the audience was Grand Junction, Colorado. And that's how you tell.
Another one that came in kind of in that same regard, if I film something in 2020, but it didn't air until 2021, you kind of talked about this on when it airs first. Does it make it eligible? And what's that versus if I aired it in 2020, but I didn't enter it then, but it aired again in 2021, could I enter it then?
Ooh, good question. It has to have first aired during our eligibility period, which right now is calendar year 2021. So if it saw the first light of day, if it aired digitally or broadcast or however way in 2020, it's not eligible. So sorry, missed the deadline. But if it was produced in 2020, but it aired for the first time in 2021, that's eligible. That's okay. And when you think about documentaries, sometimes they spend years researching, editing, producing stuff, but the final thing doesn't actually air until, and that's legal. We're okay with it.
Well, and in that same connection, we had a Facebook question come in from David Cohen. He says, we're submitting an hour documentary and they're struggling to find a category. And he goes on to say, They work with LPS, Lincoln Public Schools, and they didn't see an affiliate for that sign up. So it's kind of a two-parter. They're trying to find the best category. I know this is kind of specific, but it might help shed some light for other people that are trying to find some options.
Yeah, the second part of the question, David's talking about the entry form. There's a drop-down box where organizations that have entered frequently with us over the past years, their organization is listed in the drop-down box. If yours isn't, you simply type in the name and hit enter. And that'll take it. So that's the second part. Now, the one about the documentary and struggling to pick a category, we actually have 3 documentary categories, and it's one of them is historical, then cultural, then topical. And a lot of producers are going to say, is it cultural or topical, or historical or topical? And topical is going to be the one that has to do with primarily current events. Cultural is going to be like arts, culture, and it's going to be very, very seriously arts and culture documentary. Historical, yeah, historical. The way that I tell people, and this goes for anybody who's having a problem choosing any category, the judges are going to be peer professionals who do that specific kind of work. They produce historical documentaries for that category. Do you want them to judge yours? And if the answer is yes, it's because you produced a historical documentary. Or do you want cultural documentary producers to judge your work? That's the best way to decide which category. But if none of that has answered your question, then David, let's talk offline. Give me a call in an hour or so, and I'll be happy to help walk you through. I cannot, for anybody, I can't tell you what category to put it into. It's always going to be the decision of the submitter. But I can sure help narrow it down based on 20 years of experience, and I'm happy to do that. So
that's how I got to know you, Audrey. You helped me many a time whenever the stuff I do is very different and in its own niche. And a lot of times I didn't know, and you would even let me know, hey, this is something you can consider. Again, you never told me, here's what you need to do. Here's what you qualify for.
Yeah, absolutely. And
because comes down to saving, sometimes spending money in the wrong direction. Because a lot of times I was doing it for myself, you know?
Yeah, totally. And we want everybody to be nominated. So I'm going to help you to the best of my ability without telling you what to do. So that's where we're coming from. Yeah, thanks, Chris.
We have a lot of categories, and one is even like commercials. So sometimes you've got some locally produced commercials that might qualify. Can I enter for my client? Can I enter my client, maybe sometimes to sweeten a deal that some ad agency is trying to do to keep that client happy? Nothing would impress them more to say is, hey, we won you an Emmy, surprise.
Yeah.
Can you do that? Can you enter somebody or sign up somebody for an Emmy?
Wouldn't that be great? But the answer is probably not. And that is because the Emmys award production. We award to the crew, basically. And that's the producer, the photographer, the gaffer, if the writer, whatever you might have done to make that video come into being, we want to reward you. A client, unless they were also out there being a production assistant, probably isn't part of that crew, and therefore is probably not going to go on the award. So that, because we get that question so frequently, and we get it after the Emmys, which my client is so psyched that our commercial won an Emmy, and it was for XYZ mattress company. Well, you can order us a plaque for XYZ mattress company after the fact if you want to do it. But for a statue, can't do that.
One of our own, Bill Perry here, who's on the board. He says, great program, everyone. Question, what's the best way to determine whose name gets to be? So as you mentioned, like whose name goes on the trophy, for somebody that's like, well, okay, I did it, or I was on camera. How do you get to decide whose name goes on it? And is there an easy way to figure that out?
The easy answer to your question, Bill, is 3 letters, EGO. And that is the only reason that it matters whose name appears first on the entry form. For us Emmy people, we don't care. every name on the entry form, if that entry, it has the highest score, everybody's getting a statue, and it doesn't matter whose name is first. But a lot of people ask that question of me to say, well, you know, I'm the news anchor, or I'm the producer, or I'm the this, I'm the that. I go first. On your entry form, when you're submitting, each entrant or each submitter has the ability to move the names up to the around to the top. So if you don't like how it looks, you can always change it on the form. But that is something that matters more to the entrants than it ever will to the office.
Great. We're talking about craft categories and kind of what a craft category is. We got a question here from Lily saying there's a new category in craft. Could you explain what qualifies for the reporter specialty assignment and maybe in comparison to some of the others?
Okay, Lily, awesome question. Thank you for that. A specialty assignment reporter, back in the old days, and you see I have gray hair, so I know all about the old days. But last century, specialty assignment reporter was one person who was scheduled to cover a certain beat, like the Capitol, or education in schools, or business news. That is specialty assignment. And now, while in today's world, a station doesn't, or newsroom doesn't usually have just one person that just does one thing. We wear many, many hats. But for those reporters who are covering specialty assignment stories, that's what that category is for. And it's different from, say, an investigative reporter's work or a hard news or daily news reporter's work. Specialty assignment is something that is just that. It's assigned in a special case. So that's what that is.
Great. Here's kind of a good one too that I considered when I first started entering. Kate says, do you prefer that we remove the station corner bug and I guess like versus an air check versus just the clean video? Can I take a guess at what I think this might be? Because I don't know, and see if I'm right.
Take a guess.
I always would think, yeah, use the air check because one, it's proof that it aired, and that's pretty much it. I just always thought, like, I want to make sure people don't think, because that's sometimes I do goofy stuff and I don't want people to think, oh, this is an outtake or a blooper, and it doesn't qualify to let you know.
So you have proof.
Yeah, right. So is that good, or should they give like what they're thinking is the higher quality or without anything like that to distract?
It's a great question. And the actual quality of the video is not nearly as important as what the viewer saw. So if you have the exact video that the viewer saw, that's what we want. And whatever it looks like, we need the lower thirds, we need all that kind of stuff. So if it's got a bug in the corner and that's what the viewer saw, we want it. We want it because, again, the judges do what you do, and they're looking for content, creativity, and execution. And nowhere in there is a thing that says, how clear is the video? That doesn't matter. They can tell content, creativity, and execution. But what we want in the office is we want you to submit what the viewer saw. So
and if, heaven forbid, your category is focused on camera work and visuals, and the air check went out with the lower third covering up the biggest thing that you're focusing on, the dog that was adopted, and you can't even see it. And if that's what went out, then that's not good. That's not what the viewer saw.
Well, but if the lower third is what the viewer saw and it was covering up the little eyes of the dog and it's all very sad, but the thing is, and that's going to be a craft category. So yeah, that will be judged on creativity and execution.
Okay.
Because a lot of times the craft person isn't in charge of content.
Right.
But again, it's photographers. And if they're not used to looking at video like that, they get it. They see what happens in the control room all the time. And they're going to be able to look past that and see the creativity and the execution, because you don't necessarily need the judges to get all teary-eyed at the adopted dog story. You need them to be able to tell whether you're doing good work.
Yeah.
And that's different from, I get so many so many times I'll see a description of an entry and it will say something like, "We were first on scene," or something like that. And the judges are other news people. They don't necessarily, the quality of your entry doesn't depend on whether you were first on scene. It depends on how well you covered that event. And that's what the judges are looking for. So anyway, too long an answer.
That's great. Well, and then with other things outside of just the broadcast, as we are dipping into, as you said, like TikTok and short form digital categories, there's also, what about this? I've seen some people, can I enter something that premiered for a live audience? Like if it was a video produced for a large banquet, or there was a huge audience that was maybe made for people in the region that they're in, does that qualify? Or is that a really weird question?
It's not a really weird question. It's an awesome question. And so far, everything has been lovely questions. If the live audience is a general public, then the answer is yes. If you're doing, for instance, every single evening news show is premiered for a live audience, right? Isn't that live TV?
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay because it's a live local audience. If it is a live audience and it's in a closed surrounding, like in a hotel room for a gala, that's not okay because it's not a general public audience.
Okay.
It has to be general public audience.
Okay.
So,
right.
Yeah, live is good. In fact, if you're doing live shows, like, a music video that actually is live, we have a category for that, entertainment. That would be the program. So yeah, go for it.
That's a lot of things that and that's what I didn't know. I didn't know there was an entertainment category, and it's awesome to realize there's so much great content. That's one of my favorite things you mentioned about judging, is getting to see ideas that other people are doing, and what's possible. We had a lot of great people writing in with some good questions. Here's one that I have maybe been asked before, and maybe not so much asked, but told. And so I want to go right to the Emmy lady and say, can you help me out when I'm asked this? Does this count as a real Emmy? Is it the same as the Emmys when I watch the Emmys on national TV and they're winning for, Days of Our Lives and Sesame Street? I'm sure there's some other shows out there too. Does this count, Audrey? Is this the same?
Yes. It's the same organization. There is one small difference. Because we are local and not national, the Emmy statue is a tiny bit smaller. The national version has a much larger base, and the statue itself is a bit higher. But it's the same mold. It's the same thing. So yes, it's the same Emmy. It's the same organization. And that when all else fails, it's because it's the same organization that we get so maniacally weird about the rules, because we're sharing the brand with the National Emmy people, and we have to keep it as shiny as possible. And that's what we care. But when you receive one of these statues, that for that year, your peers have judged you as the very, very best. It's a peer award, not a People's Choice Award. And that makes all the difference. So
awesome.
Yeah, good question.
Well, it's just kind of one of those things that people are like, well, I've heard of a local Emmy, but is that different? And it's like, well, it is different, but it's the same. There's no way that legally we could say, yeah, this is an Emmy too. I mean, copyright, there's no way you can do it.
You can. You just have to use the word regional in front of it.
Right.
So it's a question of saying, hey, I won an Emmy. Well, people say that all the time, but if you're putting it on a resume, or you're putting it out there so that like somebody who cares might, potential job reference. I get calls all the time. Did this person win an Emmy? Right. In most cases, you're going to say, I won a Heartland Emmy. I won a regional Emmy.
Right. And you've been so clear, and especially if you win, it's very clear in the programs, it's clear in the emails, it's clear when we say, like, here's how to let people know. We try to give the tools that we can to, hey, if you won, congratulations, here's how you can tweet about it and be on the up and up. And yes, let the world know. Be proud of this moment, but also make sure you know how to do it the right way. And you have such good information there. I've got one more question here from Ralph. He says, I've got a series of promotional trailers for a film. It was on social media. What's the correct category for this? And does that fall within the entries?
Yeah, if the trailers were produced and intended for a regional audience, then that's definitely eligible. And depending on how long those trailers were, one of our new categories is promotional long form, I think. I don't have the exact name off the top of my head, but it's just for these types of things that are longer than a regular PSA, commercial, promotional spot, that kind of stuff. So yeah, if those trailers were produced and intended for a local audience, you betcha. Right.
Okay. We've got another one here from Delaney who says, can you explain the rules in Spanish media and talk about the emerging categories? And also, can editors, producers, and photogs, APC participate as a team so we're not competing between each other?
Okay, cool. These are some great questions.
Not specific. Is that okay?
Yeah, this is awesome. I'm going to get my reading glasses on to read this if I forget. Okay, so she's talking about category viability when she talks about merging categories. And this is something that we're going to be doing and have done for both Spanish and English. We run 2 separate contests. The Spanish language entries are judged by peer professionals who speak Spanish fluently. The English language categories are judged by English speakers. And we present, and then the highest scores rise to the top and get announced as nominees and or winners later, sometimes in the same category. In fact, many times in the same category. So we're going to have continuing coverage in Spanish and continuing coverage in English. Okay, so a category has to have between 4 and 9 entries to make it viable or workable. Otherwise, we go out of business. So what happens is every year, if we don't get a minimum number or a minimum somewhere between that range of categories in a particular category, then we will merge those entries with the next closest category. So as an example, let's take weather anchor. Say we only get 2 entries in weather anchor. We would merge that category with news anchor so that it would be for news and weather anchor. That would be the Emmy Award, news and weather anchor, but they would be judged together if we don't get enough entries. We don't combine these, we don't merge these without calling the entrant first and letting them know or emailing them. But we will contact you if we have to merge your category and say, hey, there were not the required minimum in this category, we're going to merge. Do you want to continue with the merge, or do you want to be refunded and dropped out of the competition? So we're going to ask you that. So that's what category viability is. And Delaney, yes, we're going to do it. Both English and Spanish. We're offering a lot more categories this year. It's going to happen with both languages. We know it. So it is going to happen more with Spanish language because we don't get a whole lot of Spanish entries. And that happens where we tend to get 1 or 2 entries in a category. So yeah, we'll be merging a bunch of them together. Okay, then what was the second part of the question? I've forgotten.
It was, and now I've dropped it. There it is.
Can
editors, producers, photogs, APC participate as a team so they're not competing between each other for one category or within the category?
I'm not sure what you mean by entering as a team, because let's say you want to enter news special, and we allow up to 12 names on that entry form for news special. So you can put every name on your team in there. So if we're talking about craftspeople, and maybe that's what we're talking about, let's say you've got news photographers and you've got 3 news photographers and they each want to enter the craft categories, and each one will enter their own best stuff from 2021. So now you've got 3 news photographers from the same station entering in the same category. Guess what? They're not competing against each other. Each one of them is going to be judged on their own merits based on 2 qualifications. One is creativity and one is execution. So other news photographers are going to be looking at this one entry and say, how good do I think this is based on a scale of 1 to 10? And they're going to give it a mark. Move it away. Then go to the next one and look at that one. How good is this based on my experience on a scale of 1 to 10? And they're going to give it a mark and move it on. And guess what? You're going to have at least 7 of these peer professionals looking at each one of these entries and giving each one of them their own score. Then we take those scores and put them together, and whoever has the highest scores moves to the top. We can have no winners, one winner, or more than one winner in any category. So that's how it works. You're not competing against each other. And we love that about the Emmy Awards. So enter away. Go for it.
Great. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, we had some great questions and some more that might be a little bit more specific that we'll filter through. And you've mentioned before that we can reach out directly to you. Julie Lucas says, Audrey, you're doing a great job at explaining the essentials. We agree. I do have one more, if maybe we can round out this part of it is, okay, you got nominated. Awesome. You're going to go to the awards show. What happens at the awards show? I've never been, or I haven't been in a while. Is there a red carpet? Do I dress up? You mentioned a little bit about Black Tie Affair. How many speeches do I get to make if I win multiple trophies? If I can't go, do my trophies stay there? Or do I not win if I don't go?
Yeah.
What happens?
This is great. Okay, no, I love this question. It doesn't come up at all. So the awards galas, we do one in Denver and one in Oklahoma City because our chapter is so spread out geographically. But we want to give everybody who attends each event the same experience. So no matter whether you're in Denver or whether you're in Oklahoma City, if you're a winner, you'll pick up your statues that night. It is a black tie event. We have a wonderful red carpet. We have the most fabulous red carpet hosts, both in Denver and in Oklahoma City, Lucas, who is our Oklahoma City red carpet host. But it is a blast. It's a sit-down dinner. It's black tie. It's super fancy. You're there in a room full of your peers. In Denver, that might be 600 people. In Oklahoma City, it's going to be 200. But it is a wonderful night's party. Our chapter does not do acceptance speeches. In fact, because we all want to get home before Saturday night at midnight, our show is pre-produced. So it plays back. And you'll sit in the audience and it'll start talking about news special or morning newscast, and it will list out the nominees, and you look through your program and up on the screen, it's a list of all the nominees, and you get to see a video of each one of the nominees playing. You're like, ooh, that's good. That's good. Oh, there's mine. And then the winner is announced, and the winner goes running up on stage, screaming, taking pictures. You go backstage, you pick up your statue. If you're not at the show, we will get the statue to you. Never fear. It usually
you drive it directly to my house, Audrey?
No. I am so busy the week after the show. It takes me 2 days to decompress. That Saturday, and you know, because you've done it, it's like an 18-hour day for the office staff. It's crazy. And we have so many volunteers, and we've got producers and editors and people running around, but everybody looks so fabulous. It's a wonderful, wonderful night to celebrate. Now we don't send our live stream. It's not broadcast. Our show is not broadcast, so you can't watch it on TV. So that gives a certain amount of freedom to our attendees to enjoy themselves, and knowing that they're not ever going to be on camera. It's not ever going to be live. It is live streamed, so you can have your mom tune in at home to watch and see. But you can. Social media goes on. People are tweeting stuff out all night long, and it's just a fabulous, fun time. We also do things. We will induct our Silver Circle and Gold Circle honorees on the same night as the show, and on the same night that the professional Emmys are announced and presented. We also have something called Regional Student Production Awards. They're not Emmy Awards, but they're for high school and college students. And so we will present those winners as well. It's a wonderful evening, and it lasts maybe 3 hours. But that's because we don't do speeches, which tend to add another 2 hours. So,
Very
and
cool.
that's
Thank you.
what it is. Does that kind of answer the question about what it's about? Is there anything else you've been, Lucas? Oh,
Yeah.
I know. We haven't done a live show in 2 years
Right.
because of COVID. This year we're back in person in
Awesome.
locations. Yes.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, you always, I'm always attending from the Oklahoma side, and especially in the past few years prior to COVID, you could tell the love has been really tried to bring in everybody, and so it's been fun to see over the years the people from different groups that drive into Oklahoma because it's closer, and you start to see familiar faces of we're all part of this media team. And it's pretty cool to get to see it all together and to be part of it. And I thank you for all the hours and the passion that you pour into this. And I'm excited and so thankful for the time that Bill Perry called me up and said, you ought to think about doing this. I never thought that I could win, much less get to help be involved and hopefully reach out and let other people know, upcoming students to be involved in what you talked about, and first timers that have a craft that they're really good at to get to shine their light and then maybe bring people along for the ride too.
Well,
So
thank you. That's wonderful to hear. And I also want to say a big shout out of thanks to our Board of Governors, who are all volunteers, and they work tirelessly for our chapter and for everybody who enters and all of our members. And I love you all. I love talking to you on the phone. Give me a call if you got questions. It's my pleasure.
Oh, I had to pop back on and say, yes, we applaud you. Thank you guys so much for sharing all these tips and tricks on how to win an Emmy, because especially as a first timer, if you've never done this before, it's a lot to read. What is it? A 50-page packet on the website? What is that?
I don't know, but it's many pages. Yes.
There's a lot of pages. Yeah. But you got to read it so that way you can find which parts pertain to you. There's a glossary of terms. There's a definition of all the types of categories and a list of all the specific categories. So there's a lot to learn. And so we hope this hour together really shared some insights on how to kind of dive in for your first time or for your second, third, fourth, fifth time.
Yep. And if you have any questions at any time during the process, give me a call. 303-722-0916.
That's it. Cool. This is Audrey's contact info. So she is here ready to answer any questions that you may have. And as well, you can find us on social. We are very social, especially this time of year. Yeah. We have a website, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and we found our LinkedIn page. So we're there too.
Finally. So Jules, thanks to you and Lucas for putting on this program. It's people have been asking for it, and we're here to serve. And thank you both for heading this up and getting it moving. Really appreciate it.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, I just thought of 6 more questions. I'm going to call the Emmy lady in the office. So I'll see you guys next time, and happy Emmying.
Thank you. Happy Emmying to everybody.
All right. Thank you guys. See you soon.
Bye-bye.